my mother and father were not there to protect me, because I came through them and not from them. I forgave my father for leaving me, as I was thinking that maybe he had been drinking, hence he crashed the car and died. I now know that God works all things for our good. I have also learned to forgive my mother, because now I know that she had been through a lot herself. I forgive myself for not speaking up, because now I have reclaimed my life.
I'm alright, and for the first time in a long time I'm alright. I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago.
Hi everyone, Molweni. My name is Oyama Mdleleni. Welcome to my podcast called To Serve. Today I will be sharing from where I left off on my previous video, where I was talking about how being raped from the age of 6 years affected me in terms of the first pillar, which is the relationships. Now I will be sharing in terms of how it affected the faith pillar. Growing up, I did not go to church. My family was not a religious family as I grew up on my paternal side of the family. So they did not go to church much, so I did not know about God. I was not exposed in terms of God as a father, God as love. My first time coming to knowledge in terms of God was when my aunt, who is the older sister of my mother, she started going to church. I was told that before she started going to church, she used to drink a lot and was experiencing challenges in her life, and then she got saved. That's where now I started to know her after she had been saved. So she would take me along when she would go to church, and at night she would pray. When I would go to her house for a sleepover, she would pray, and that's how I started to know God. But even then, I did not know God intimately, in terms of having an intimate relationship with God. And we would pray at night until she got sick. Every night I was there when she was sick, and every night she would have these. She had palpitations. So every night she would spit this saliva on a bucket. She would have a bucket next to her bedside where she would spit out this saliva that seemed to be causing problems with her, until she passed on in year 2002. So I didn't know much even then about God, because that was just a short period where we did this, going to church together and her praying, and I didn't understand any of the things that was happening. I was just tagging along with her. I didn't know how to pray, and I didn't know the other side. Perhaps if I was exposed to the side where she used to drink and then see the transformation, that would have been better for me. But I didn't see, because she was still poor. She stayed in a shack, and when she got sick, and perhaps maybe if she got better, I didn't know the more relationship I had with. Then when I got married, my husband, it was different for him. He grew up in a church with mom and dad. He grew up in a church, and also he had taken up some roles also in the church. And so I would go with him to church with the kids. Sundays we would go to church, and this happened for a while. I remember for you to be a member in the church, you had to go to the altar, and where you would confess that you want to be a full-time member, and they will take your details. I remember I would have the urge to want to do it, but I would never do it. And I then started to feel discouraged. I would come up with excuses and tell him, no, preparing the children in the morning to go to church, or the children don't like it, or I'll just come up with excuses just not to go to church with him. And I saw it frustrated him. But there was nothing that he could do. He couldn't force me now. So he just let it be, and he would go alone to church. And for me, I still could not articulate exactly why all of a sudden I didn't want to go to church with him, or specifically not to go to church. But I think one of the reasons was because I did not see what change the going to church was doing for my life, because I was still the same old, and there was no transformation that was happening in my life. I was still feeling the heaviness that I had been feeling for years. So there was nothing that church was doing for me. I didn't go to church with him for years after that of our marriage. Because I remember our son now was 9 years. I think I stopped going to church after he had just been born. So it had been quite some time not going to church. Then, as I was explaining in my previous video, that as we were going through the divorce, I started feeling depressed and all of this. Then, but even still in our marriage, we were praying every night before we go to sleep. We were praying with the children. It was, I think our prayer was just a repeat, a recited prayer, because we would pray every night still, and there were no changes. There was no change in terms of our marriage. We were still fighting. I was still feeling this anger. I was still the same person, until this one night. The children were with him, because it was during that time where on Wednesday we would take the kids and some weekends. And on this specific night, I was alone in the house, and I was doing my normal night prayer before, because I remember I was already in my pajamas and I was ready to go to bed, and I remembered, oh, I haven't prayed. And I just started in my bedroom. I just knelt on the bed just to make the prayer before I go to bed. So as I was praying this specific night, something just happened. I felt this, how do I even explain it? But I felt like something had just overtaken me. I felt the presence of God. I remember I wept that night. I've never wept like that in my entire life. I remember I wept that night. I started saying things like, take my life, God. I didn't even know that, but I just knew that it was God. I started saying, take my life, do what you will with my life, I surrender all. And that night was the beginning of my healing, the beginning of this journey of transformation and trying to figure out my true authentic self, who Oyama is. So I've been now on this journey since 2002, been taking these baby steps. This is how also the YouTube channel and the podcast came about. It started from this journey. It was inspired by the journey. So in the beginning, I remember it was the beginning of the pandemic. Was this day of me being saved was the 1st of May, and it's coincidentally it's my mother's birthday. So on the 1st of May, because I remember speaking to her during the day, just wishing her a happy birthday. It was that night, the night of that day, and I just felt peace. I felt for the first time in my life, I felt loved. I felt loved because I had been looking for this love in all the wrong places. I had been looking for this belonging. I wanted to belong so much somewhere because I was rejected by my family. I wanted a place where I could belong, where I could be fully accepted and just be myself, whoever that is. So in the beginning then of this journey, I remember I was still going to work and I was working now even also at night because of the declaration of the state of disaster, of national disaster from the COVID-19. And I would go to work and come back and continue with my normal life now. And I started feeling that what I felt on that day was starting to decline. It was starting to decline, and I did not want to lose it because I remember I did not want to lose that feeling that I had felt on the 1st of May. So then God made a way for me to be able to spend time reading the Bible. His grace and mercy. His mercies are new each morning. That is so I've experienced that in my own life. I started now to read the Word every morning, every day. I was intentional. Every morning at 3 a.m. I would get up and read the Bible, spend time in the Word, and I felt God said to me, I must write a book. I must share my story. I wrote the book, and so that's how the journey began. Then God said, I must start a YouTube channel, share my story, share my story, share my story. And He has made, in this process, He has spoken to me. I have been now on that this transformational life journey where I'm trying to just discover exactly who the triggers, being aware whenever, self-awareness whenever I am feeling angry, just to find out, okay, what is making me angry now? Where does that come from? Looking at my behavior and thinking patterns so that I can try to manage and also learn and unlearn some of the things that I have been taught, that I believed about myself and about other people. So it has been that journey. I don't think there's ever maybe a destination or to fully recover or to fully heal, but I'm feeling lighter now. I'm feeling more at peace. I'm getting more clarity in terms of even the things that I love, the things that I enjoy. doing, because before I didn't even have a vision or dreams or aspirations in terms of where I would love to see my life and where I would love to see my family and my in the future. So, but there are also still areas that are still a bit challenging, where I need to practice more or self-discipline in those areas. But really knowing God and being intentional about building this intimate relationship with Him, where He is also taking me back and showing me that, you see here, that was me, I was there, this happened for this reason, encouraging and strengthening, even to do to sit here and record these videos, because of His promises and also His faithfulness from the past. I have also been able to as He is revealing some of the things, He's revealing to me, and I'm able to ask Him questions, why this happened, why this didn't happen. And He's also willing to, and he's more than willing to show me and to answer some of the questions that I have been asking Him during my quiet time with Him, during my time of intentionality, spending time and wanting this intimate relationship, and also just longing and yearning, and also being hungry for knowing Him. And because when I've realized that the more I want to know Him, the more I'm also learning about myself in the process. So the first thing that God said to me then, as I was in this process, the first thing He said to me, and on the other side I'm getting divorced, and the process has gone far, where I've even signed at the sheriff's office. Now the papers are about to be processed, and God says to me, apologize to your husband. And the first thing I was like, apologize, but He also heard me. But because I wanted to be obedient, I apologized to him. And at first he was reluctant, and I could understand why, because really because of what we had gone through, he did not want to see himself again in that toxic environment. And so he was reluctant, and I kept on trying to convince him, and he didn't believe that I had changed. I was telling him about my experience, God, in writing the book. I shared the book with him, where I was telling my entire childhood story, the story of my life for the past 30 years. I was sharing with him my experiences, and he started now to he came back. Oh no, before he came back, then we set up a meeting, or his father wanted to speak with us about what was happening. So his father and his mother, they wanted to get to understand exactly what was happening, why we were getting divorced. And we were traveling to go and meet with them and to talk to them. At this time, we were on speaking terms. We're trying to see how, if we were going to get back together, but we would also put on hold the process of divorce. So we went to see his parents. We spoke to them, just to tell, and they shared their side, their experiences. We shared also what were the challenges, but we didn't go deep in terms of what were the root causes, because all was just manifesting was just the symptoms of the root causes, caused by the root causes. So after that, and I could feel God's presence in that meeting or in that encounter with his parents. I could feel, because even the things that his mother and father were saying, because there were also some the things that they were saying that were reassuring to me, as I had been trying to fit in this family, trying to belong, and I felt that I was just not. I felt that I was being maybe too much. I don't know. My expectations were not. What I was receiving or what I was getting, but I had never even communicated those expectations. So I felt there was this clash, there was this conflict, but I felt God's presence in that meeting and reassurance. So when we came back now from that trip, as we're still trying to talk things out and see, I came to a point where I was asking God, did you tell me to apologize to him for us to get back together, or just for us to have an amicable relationship because of the kids? And I asked God, I said, if you want us to get back together, can you please give me 3 confirmations? And God did just that. The biggest confirmation was this child who had been in a shake fire incident, because I work in the disaster management space. This child who had been in a shake fire incident, and he was in that shake fire incident with his 2 younger siblings, his 2 sisters, who died in the incident, and was in the hospital. I read about this in the newspaper as a colleague of mine sent this through to me, because I was asking him about another incident. Then he just showed me of this one. I was saying to him, it's said that kids die from these fires, and these are things that can be prevented. And he shared with me this incident. I was looking through, I was reading through it, and just there was something that was just the Holy Spirit just drew me to this child, and I tried, and I wanted to find out how he was. Went to the hospital. The child was badly burnt, and when I got the name of the child, the child's name is Vuyo, and I was like, Vuyo, okay. My husband's name is Vuyo. So when I went again, because the first time I couldn't see the child, he was still in the ICU. And the second time again, I went to see him, or I could see him this time, and I discovered that the full name was Vuyo. So that was confirmation for me. That was the first confirmation. And the second confirmation, this one time, my husband had posted on his WhatsApp status a verse from the Bible, and on the same time I had also posted the exact same verse. I think it was in the First Kings. I can't remember now the exact script, what it was, but it was the exact same thing. So that was the second confirmation for me. And the third confirmation was a close friend of mine. My husband was in contact with her, and he was sharing with her how he was feeling about what was happening between us. And he had shared that with the kids. I had started reading the Bible with them, and we were reciting the Psalm. We did Psalm 23, 27, and recently 91. But the time it was 23 and 27. So he shared with my friend that how he was impressed that I was taking this initiative to read the Psalm with the kids. So my friend was just sharing this with me towards the end of our call, and it just struck me that he was appreciating this effort. So those were the confirmations for me from God, that this marriage, he wanted this marriage to continue to survive, and his covenant. So then we got back together, he moved back in, so things have been better since. He moved back in 2020 still. 2020 in I think it was the month of September, October, somewhere there. So that is how then things have changed in terms of now the positive side that has transpired in terms of this now specific pillar of the faith. So I also wrote again a sort of a letter to my younger self that reads, "Baby girl, I have been thinking to myself, how come I didn't know all these things about God when I was younger? Because I could have saved myself from a lot of heartache, especially the ones I caused myself. Myself, I have had to do some soul searching of how come we didn't speak up, of how come I didn't speak up when I was being violated. Forgiving myself was the hardest thing to do. My mother and father were not there to protect me because I came through them and not from them. I forgave my father for leaving me as I was thinking that maybe he had been drinking, hence he crashed the car and died. I now know that God works all things for our good. I have also learned to forgive my mother because now I know that she had been through a lot herself. I forgive myself for not speaking up because now I have reclaimed my voice." So this is the letter that I wrote to my younger self as I am in this journey now, this journey of healing, and forgiveness has been the hardest, especially forgiving myself, because I blame myself for not speaking up, for why did I put myself in a position that this could happen to me as young as I was. But forgiving myself has been the hardest thing to do, and every time I forgive myself I could feel the burden being lifted off, the heaviness being lifted off, the weight being lifted off. So that has been very encouraging and very peaceful space